Welcome to Cloud Consultancy's Aero Workflow Manager Getting Started demo. We've already looked at installing and setting up Aero and actually performing work in Aero. And in this section, we're going to take a quick look at using the Manage Work tab to keep an eye on all the work your staff are doing and actually creating tasks for them to work on. So let's jump next and take a look at the bird's eye view. We've got the Manage tab, and here we're going to look at the work. This screen answers the questions that managers or owners of the firm might have, like what work is due today, what do I do about one of my staff who's called in sick and I need to reassign their work to someone else. How much work do we have that's being worked on right now versus what has been put on hold or deferred, that sort of thing. Here you'll see the notes. You can see the deferred notes about why some jobs were not completed and put on hold. So let's start at the top of the screen, and so this is on the Manage tab, the work screen, and you'll see that there are blue links showing the count of each of these things. So we've got two jobs that are not authorized, since we on our global settings set that new work had to be authorized by a manager in this firm. So this is telling us that we have two that are waiting to be approved. Then there's some activities due, some are in progress, and some are deferred. The next section, this gray area, is where you can sort of pick what date range you want to look at. The default here is everything that has not been completed that has the due date before or up to today. And the bottom half of the screen is the details, the grid of each of these activities. So we can go into each of these by clicking the Go To link, and we can look at some of the details behind it. But you can see that the grid view alone is helpful to give you some of the information, like, for example, the total estimated hours for work today, how many you've got. You can also see, if you look at the last three columns, there are estimated hours, and it's also showing the actual time tracking hours that have been posted already against each of these activities. If it goes over the estimate, then it will show in the third column how much the job is already going over. If it isn't yet over the estimate, it won't show at all, because we didn't want that to be cluttered. We wanted to call attention specifically to jobs that are now over the estimate. So we'll look at one of these jobs and click the Go To link and look at some of the details. And this is where you'll set up each of the steps, all of the resources for each task or each activity. So you'll see here that you give the activity a name, you pick the activity type and billable status, things like that. And on the right side you can put what the billable rate is, that kind of information. This information on the right with the billable rate and the estimated hours is helpful back on those grids when you can see a lot of work together and sort of prioritize not only what work needs to be done, but which ones are fixed price and which ones need to be billed. Because if you have recurring tasks and you're trying to do a fixed fee with customers, this will really show out on the grid how much work is, how much work it's taking. So back on the left side of the screen, some of these are going to be obvious, but the due dates start and end I want to talk about. This activity we're looking at here is a one-time activity, what you may call a project. Method differentiates three types of recurrence. A one-time activity does not recur, and then a series is what method calls it if you turn that one-time activity into a recurring event. The parent activity is a series, and all of the child activities, if you will, all of the instances are called occurrences. So this one you can see in the top left-hand corner, and it shows you that it is a one-time activity. And you can put a start and end date here at the bottom of the left half of the screen. If you were going to do a recurring activity, you would click that radio button and it will default to the date for the first day of the year and the last day of the year. And that is so that when you recur in the future, when you renew the recurrences, it will renew it for the following year from the first of the year. And we'll have a more detailed discussion about that in a different video. But that is a distinction that you want to make. So if you create a project or create a recurring task, use that radio button there to select one of the two. So let's scroll down the screen a little bit and look at the bottom half. We've got some tabs here. The Steps tab is obviously where you're going to enter that data that we saw on the work assignment screen, and that's information about the steps and where you can paste in your links, your action links, if you want to send your staff to a website, or your help links if you want to send them to the documentation about how to perform the task. And also at the bottom there is the Recurring tab, and that is where you will determine what frequency you want to set any of your recurring tasks to: weekly, monthly, what have you. And finally, there is a Time Tracking tab that will show you if you're looking at a one-time event or an occurrence. It will show you the time posted to that activity. So let's look at also at the top of the screen some of the buttons, because one of the most helpful features here is that you can copy an activity. So let's say you do payroll or any type of work for several clients, and you want to keep mostly these same steps. You can add this activity to the Aero activity library as a template, and then you can use it in the future on any other clients you want to use it on. And once you use it on another client, you can of course change it to tweak little details that may be different for another client. You can also copy the activity here, so you would go to the More tab again, More button again, and you can also make a duplicate activity, but only if it's for the same client. So I think that gives the basic overview of the details of the task. We'll close this window and look back at the Manage Work screen. There's also a button underneath the grid we want to look at, and that says New Activity. That's going to open the same window we were just looking at, but it's going to be blank. And you can add a new activity, all the details, and save it. So that brings us to the end of the general overview of this Manage Work tab, and should give you everything that you need to get started in the manager role.